There are people who are always tired, lost, and unmotivated. They wake up feeling heavy, they go to bed feeling anxious, but they can't explain why. They've tried everything. They've changed their routine, read self-help books, tried to think positively. Nothing changes. Life doesn't flow. Plans get stuck. And their mind doesn't cooperate. It seems like an invisible block. And that's exactly what it is. Invisible. Because what's holding you back isn't emotional. It's spiritual. But you can't even imagine it. You think it's just a phase, that it will pass, that it's just the stress of everyday life. But have you noticed that this phase never ends? Have you noticed that even when everything seems to be fine on the outside, inside you're still fighting something you don't understand? There's a war going on, a real war, but it's silent, disguised, camouflaged in everyday life. And that's why it's so dangerous, because you're being attacked and you don't even realize it. These spiritual attacks don't come with warning. They come with distractions, with tiredness for no reason, with fights that arise out of nowhere, with a sudden desire to isolate yourself, with insomnia that follows you night after night. It's subtle, but lethal. And when you realize it, you're already paralyzed. You no longer pray like before. You no longer feel the presence of God. You no longer have the strength to react. It feels like something has emptied you inside. And it really has. The problem is that no one told you this. They preferred to say it was psychological, that it was just anxiety, just stress, just a phase. But you feel like there's something more. And there really is. Your spirit is at war. And until you see this, you'll keep fighting with the wrong weapons and losing. If this resonates with you, like the video and subscribe to the channel now, because there's still a lot to be revealed. Now comment below. Do you want to understand what's going on in your life? Or will you remain stuck without knowing why? Have you ever stopped to think that maybe what is wearing you down is not the world around you, but something you are not seeing? Some people think they are going through a run of bad luck, a difficult phase, but they do not realize that there is something spiritual draining their energy, faith, and even the will to continue. You wake up with a tired body, a confused mind, and a heavy heart. You have tried to change your routine, improve your diet, go to bed earlier, but nothing seems to work. It is not a lack of discipline. It is that there is a battle going on and you were caught in the middle of it without even knowing it. And do you know what is worse? Many people think that this is normal, that it is just like that, but it is not. This feeling of carrying a weight all the time, of always fighting against something invisible, is not random. Some people live like this for years, thinking they need motivation, when in fact they need spiritual discernment. You are being attacked, but since you do not see it, you do not react. Now, comment below. Have you ever felt that something is holding you back, but you were never able to understand what it was? There are days when you wake up wanting to go back to bed. Your body may be rested, but your soul is exhausted. An inexplicable tiredness, a desire to disappear for a while, to get away from everything and everyone. You look around and, theoretically, everything is fine. Nothing serious has happened. But inside, it feels like something has turned off the light. The worst is when this happens day after day. You start to wonder if you are getting sick, if you are depressed, if it is just another bad phase. But none of these answers satisfy you. Because even when you try to react, even when you do everything right, the discouragement is still there, firm, glued to you like a shadow. It doesn't scream, it whispers, It slowly extinguishes your will to live. The things that used to cheer you up now no longer make sense. You drag yourself through your responsibilities, lose your temper easily, avoid people, keep quiet, hide. And all of this without being able to explain why. And this is where many people make a mistake. They think they are just going through an emotional phase when in fact they are being affected spiritually. Because this type of discouragement that comes out of nowhere, that has no apparent reason, that resists everything you try to do to improve, can be a sign that something deeper is happening. Something that cannot be treated with rest or motivation. Something that needs to be discerned. Because what affects the spirit steals the will, the shine, the connection with God, and with the purpose. And, without realizing it, you are being pushed away from people, away from faith, away from yourself. And before you know it, you are walking out of obligation, living by inertia, breathing on autopilot. This is one of the most silent and dangerous weapons used against those who have a calling, a promise, or a mission. And now I want you to comment. Have you ever felt this unexplained weight? Have you spent days wondering why you are so dull inside? You try to focus, but your thoughts keep running over each other. A restlessness that doesn't let you decide anything. Not even simple things. You start to overthink everything, but at the same time you can't think of anything clearly. It feels like there's a fog covering your head. You even try to pray, read the Bible, seek guidance from God, but nothing comes through. The word doesn't make sense. The prayer doesn't flow. And the feeling is that God has gone silent, or that you've completely lost yourself. But it's not a lack of faith. It's an attack. One of the most ignored signs of spiritual attack is this mental confusion that builds up in silence. First, you lose focus. Then you lose motivation. Then you lose direction. And without realizing it, you start to go around in circles. Nothing seems right. Everything generates doubt. Everything becomes a reason for insecurity. You start to distrust everything, even yourself. Your intuition is blocked. Your inner voice goes silent. You pray and feel nothing. You try to hear God, but everything is muffled. This is not normal. This confusion that comes out of nowhere, that makes you feel useless, incapable, lost, is a type of spiritual sabotage. Because when the mind is attacked, the spirit cannot respond. You start to forget the promises, the words you have heard, the directions that were once clear. Life goes into standby mode, and you start to accept anything because you no longer know what is right. This spiritual confusion is strategic. It weakens you, paralyzes you, keeps you from making decisions that could change everything. And it comes exactly when you are close to a breakup. Because the enemy knows, if he messes with your mind, he delays your destiny. Now answer me here in the comments. Have you ever felt like this, with your head full, but unable to think clearly, as if something were blocking your decisions? Everything starts to go wrong in your relationships. People drift apart for no clear reason. Small disagreements turn into big fights. Bonds that seemed strong simply break. And you start to think that the problem is just a lack of time, or a difference of opinion, or maybe even your fault. But if you look closely, you will notice a pattern. It is no coincidence. It is sabotage. One of the oldest strategies of spiritual attack is isolation. Because alone, you weaken. Alone, you stop listening to advice, receiving support, growing together with those who help you maintain your faith. The attack starts with small disagreements, with silly misunderstandings. Then comes the resentment, the pride, the lack of dialogue. Before you know it, you are already distancing yourself from everyone, sometimes even from the church, the cell group, the communion with those who strengthen you. And this does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, little by little, disguised as self-sufficiency. You start to believe that you do not need anyone, that being alone is better. It's safer this way. But this is the ideal territory for the enemy to act, because without communion, faith grows cold. Without people around, you start to listen to yourself too much. And when the only voice you hear is your own, amidst the pain, anger, confusion, the risk of deviating from your purpose increases. Spiritual isolation is a trap, and it's fueled by the idea that no one understands you, no one cares, no one stays. But the truth is that you've been pushed away, and the further away you are, the harder it is to get back. So, don't underestimate the breakdown of relationships. It could be a sign that something is trying to throw you off course. Now comment here, have you ever gone through a phase in which everyone seemed to distance themselves from you at the same time, without explanation? Have you ever felt disconnected from everything and everyone? Night falls, and, for many people, the worst part of the day begins. The body lies down, but the soul does not rest. You turn from side to side, your eyes feel heavy, but sleep does not come. And when it does come, it is light, agitated, full of bad dreams, strange sensations, and a heavy atmosphere. Many people live like this, waking up in the middle of the night with a racing heart, with a bad feeling, with the feeling that they are not alone in the room. And no matter how much, they try to justify it by saying that it is stress, anxiety, or too much screen time before going to sleep. Deep down, they know that there is something more, because it is always in the silence of the night that certain oppressions become clearer. The room gets cold, the air seems heavier, sleep becomes more difficult. And this nocturnal battle saps your strength, night after night. The result appears during the day: unexplained fatigue, irritation, discouragement, and a confused mind. Rest becomes yet another battlefield. The problem is that few people take this seriously. They think it is just a nightmare, just insomnia, just a thing in the head. But the spiritual world does not sleep. And there are times when you feel like something is visiting you in the early hours of the morning, as if it were there just to take away your peace, your sleep, your energy. Have you ever woken up scared without knowing what? Or felt like something paralyzed you in the middle of the night? This is more common than it seems. And no, it's not an invention. It's a sign. Because if the enemy manages to steal your peace during the night, he compromises your strength for the day. And little by little, your spiritual resistance is undermined. The early hours of the morning are strategic spiritual times. It's when God speaks, reveals, and directs. But it's also when the attacks come, because that's when you're most vulnerable. And if you don't understand what's happening, you start to accept this type of disturbance as part of your routine. Now tell me, have you ever had nights when it seemed like you were being attacked in your sleep? Have you ever felt like something was wrong, even though you couldn't explain it? You lie in bed looking for rest, but instead of peace, you find agitation. Sleep just won't come. Your body is exhausted, but your mind keeps spinning, racing, as if on alert. And when you finally fall asleep, the discomfort sets in. Recurring nightmares, the feeling of falling, inexplicable fear, a strange presence in the room. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night with your heart racing, your breath held, with the feeling that you've had a confrontation, but you can't explain it. And the more this happens, the more your energy is drained, night after night. During the day, the reflection appears: extreme tiredness, discouragement, lack of focus. irritation for no reason. You drag yourself along trying to accomplish simple tasks, but everything weighs you down. And the worst part is that, often, people don't associate this with the spiritual. They only look for answers in the physical. They try to go to bed earlier, change their mattress, drink tea, avoid screens before bed. But nothing changes, because what's happening is deeper. The attack is not against your body, it's against your spirit. The early mornings have become battlefields where forces you cannot see are trying to paralyze you. And when this type of disturbance becomes routine, your spirit begins to weaken. You start to avoid praying before going to sleep because you feel that this intensifies the confrontations. You start to sleep with the light on, afraid of the dark. And little by little, you lose spiritual authority over your own space. These nocturnal attacks are not random. They are strategic. Nighttime is the time when many spiritual decisions are made. And when you are vulnerable, without discernment, without vigilance, you become an easy target. Waking up tired is no longer an exception. It has become a pattern. And the longer this goes on, the more your interior breaks down. Now tell me, have you ever experienced early mornings like this, when it seemed like you were fighting against something invisible while you were just trying to rest? There comes a point where you can no longer ignore it. You realize that what you are experiencing is not normal, that these obstacles are not simple coincidences. Your tired mind, your heavy heart, your dreams that have been stopped, your doors closed, your relationships broken, everything is piling up. And even though you try to move on with your life, something inside you knows that something is wrong, something that cannot be resolved with rest, motivation, or distraction. Because what you are facing is spiritual. And against this, you can no longer remain passive. You need to wake up. You need to react. You need to understand that you are not just dealing with natural problems. There is a war behind all of this. A silent battle that acts in the shadows, sapping your strength, your faith, your hope. And if you don't stand up now, you will continue to be dragged by this cycle that sucks everything that is yours. God never called you to survive. He called you to fight, but not with anger, despair, or impulsiveness. With discernment, with vigilance, with a firm spirit. The reaction begins in the spirit. It begins when you decide to stop accepting what destroys you in silence. When you decide to close the gaps. When you start praying again, even if you don't feel like it. When you fast, even if you don't understand. When you open the Bible, even if you don't feel anything. That's when the reaction begins. And over time, the weight starts to lift, clarity returns, strength returns. But this only happens when you understand that you are not a victim. You have weapons, you have authority, but you need to use them. No one is going to do it for you. The enemy will always prefer that you remain paralyzed, confused, distracted. Because until you wake up, he continues to act. So don't wait any longer. Those who have a calling live at war, and those who live at war need to take a stand. Now comment here. Are you ready to react and take back everything that the enemy tried to steal in silence? If you've come this far, it's because something inside you felt that you needed to hear all of this. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't just another video. It was a calling. Because God didn't create you to live stuck, carrying burdens that aren't yours, enduring pain that could have been healed, and accepting prisons that were already broken on the cross. There's a time for everything, and maybe this is your time. To wake up, to look inside, and recognize that what you feel isn't weakness, it's a battle. That what you're experiencing isn't failure, it's opposition. That it's not confusion, it's distraction from the enemy. But now you know. Now you understand. And with this understanding comes responsibility. You can no longer say you didn't know. What you do with this from now on will determine whether you continue in this cycle or break once and for all with everything that's holding you back. God has called you to walk with your head held high, with clarity, with purpose, with discernment. But this only happens when you stop fighting with human weapons and start arming yourself spiritually. Praying, fasting, seeking, watching, moving away from everything that weakens your faith. It won't be easy, but it's not impossible either. You are not alone. It all starts with a decision to no longer accept living below what God has prepared for you, to no longer silence your soul when it cries for help, to no longer ignore the signs, to take a stand once and for all. There are things that will only change when you decide to change the way you face things. You may be tired, but you are still standing, and this is already proof that you can win. Not because of your effort, but because of the authority that exists within you when you understand who you are in God. If this resonates with you, like this video now and subscribe to the channel. Because in the next one, I'll show you the practical way to break away from all this once and for all. You can't miss what's coming.